From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you. And today we'll welcome in Kansas Animal Health Commissioner Justin Smith. He'll discuss the ongoing spread of Vesicular Stomatitis virus in the state, afflicting horses and other livestock. Justin will talk about the measures that you horse owners and livestock producers should take to protect your stock. Also, on the latest edition of FSA Coffee Talk, Terri Sicard will talk about the county FSA committee election process, with nominations due no later than August the 3rd. And further ahead, K-State's Charlie Lee this week talking about how skunks defensively spray that musk and how to effectively rid of the odor. All that and more right here on Agriculture Today.
With the shortage of primary care physicians, especially in rural areas, health education and disease prevention are vital. K-State research and extension programs address quality of life, personal development, and health behaviors across all life stages of all social economic groups. To learn more about health education, one of K-State Research and Extension's 5 grand challenges, visit www.ksre.ksu.edu.
You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we're glad to have you along on this Tuesday. First off today, we will pick up on a topic which has become ultra important here in the state of Kansas since it first emerged several days back now. It is a livestock disease which can be formidable, and it's been identified now, we're told, in 10 Kansas counties, but it is a statewide concern at that. What we're talking about here is Vesicular Stomatitis virus, or VSV. And to fill us in on what's going on with this now is the Animal Health Commissioner for the state with the Kansas Department of Agriculture, Justin Smith. So, Justin, you and your staff have been feverishly after this.
That is correct, Eric. Yeah, it has been one of those things that we have been dealing with, and honestly, it started somewhat isolated down in the south central counties, but obviously we're seeing it starting to spread now, and it is one of those things as we continue to spread, it does cause us some concern, not just because of the animal issues that it causes, but also some of the trade issues and some of the movement, restrictions on movement impact that it may have.
Well, what is VSV, to remind us?
VSV is a virus. It is a virus that affects the epithelium or the skin layers of the animals affected. It is a virus that affects horses primarily, but at the same time, we do see it affect our livestock species, such as cattle, sheep, goats, swine somewhat. It is a virus that causes vesicle lesions or erosions on the skin. So the importance of it is that the fact is we can't visually look at it and discern that it is different from foot and mouth disease. So it is a virus that we need to respond to, and we respond to very, very rapidly because we can't afford to miss the foot and mouth disease component of if that would happen to be the case. So, but with that said, it is highly impactful to those animals that do become infected.
This was first discovered in south central Kansas in Butler County here several days back now?
That is correct. Our first index case did happen in Butler County, and then we had several positives in that county. But as we progressed through the summer or through the month here, we're starting to see expand out into some of the other neighboring counties and actually starting to move up towards the northeast and to the eastern side of the state as well. So
we might just briefly here, Justin, list those counties where it has been positively identified to this moment.
Sure. Okay. So as we said, Butler County was the first one. We have also positively lab confirmed it in Chase County, Cowley County, Greenwood, Marion, Miami, Montgomery, Morris, Sedgwick, and Sumner. Like I said, we positively identified it there. We are doing investigations in other counties as we speak.
So how does VSV spread? Because it obviously is adept at doing so.
So VSV has a couple different ways that it can spread. Probably the one that is out there is a direct contact. Now, that's not really the most prevalent way that it's spread, but we can know that we can pass it via direct contact, nose to nose. We can also get it from, sharing water buckets, sharing water troughs, or that stuff of that nature. But probably the most prevalent way is that we know that there are insect vectors out there, or flies, certain species of flies and the black gnats that have the ability to be what we call a biological vector. So they have the ability to propagate that virus within themselves and then pass it to the animals. So knowing what we know about the virus, which is obviously we got a lot to learn yet, but knowing what we know, that the biological vector is probably the most prevalent way that we're spreading this virus from animal to animal right now.
And you mentioned the lesions as being an obvious sign of VSV, but are there other symptoms that folks should be watchful for as well?
Sure. So one of the first things is these animals will run a fever, just like any kind of a virus, but that fever tends to be somewhat short-lived. So many times we'll miss that, particularly when we have the heat that we're dealing with right now. But probably more prevalent is the fact that these animals, one, is they develop these lesions in their mouth and their tongue. So if we see them, one, go off feed, or two, sometimes we'll see the slobbering or just the drooling that may come along with it is highly indicative of the VSV. And then obviously anything else that might be impacted as far as where the lesion may be. Sometimes we'll see it down around the hoof or the coronary band, and we'll see those animals actually be lame because of the soreness from those vesicles and those lesions down there around them feet.
Now, those symptoms sound dramatic. Do we find that animals will succumb to VSV, or will they typically recover over time, Justin?
Typically, they recover. And in fact, I don't know that I know we haven't had a case of any kind of morbidity or death loss associated with this virus. You're right. The lesions are very severe on some of these animals. It's amazing some of the lesions we'll see on the tongues and the lips, and it just truly looks painful, and it is painful to these animals. But I will say, fortunately, they tend to heal very rapidly. And so within that 7 to 10 day range, we'll see a lot of these animals back on track and looking good at that point in time.
So it's really back then to prevention, what a horse owner, a livestock producer can do to shield their animals from VSV. Where does one start with that?
Sure. So, like I said, primarily we know that the spread of this is through these fly vectors. So we are really trying to emphasize doing some fly control. We ask people to be vigilant about their fly control. We ask people to maybe step up their efforts towards fly control, whether it be through insecticides, repellents. Also, there's some things they can do around the farm as far as cleaning up the manure piles and making sure that the bedding is not there for those fly eggs, drying up any kind of water holes that may be standing out there. That is a great place for these flies to breed. At the same time, there is some knowledge on the life cycle of these flies, and knowing that some of them are nocturnal and some of them are during the daytime. So try to determine what flies might be out there. And when I talk about flies, I'm talking about basically 3 species of flies: the black flies, the sand flies, and what we call midges or the gnats. The typical stable fly, horn fly, or biting house fly is not one that we're concerned about as far as being that biological vector, but it does preclude that we do need to do an overall fly control. So that's primarily the basis that we're recommending, whether it be using hoods and sheets and that type of thing to try to mitigate the exposure that they have to these fly species.
What about movement of livestock, particularly horses, but even cattle? What protocols need to be considered there?
Sure. So the unfortunate thing is if you get VSV on your facility, we will put a quarantine on your facility of any susceptible livestock to not move off of that facility for at least 14 days. And 14 days is kind of that magic number in the fact that we know that the lesions are no longer infective after 14 days once they appear. So once that last animal shows us symptoms, we will put a quarantine on for 14 days, and then at that point in time, we can come out and lift it. As far as other movement out there, we just ask that folks be cognizant of the fact and take an extra look at their animals before they move, before they go to a show. We haven't put any kind of restrictions on any kind of outside movement, whether it be exhibition shows, auction markets, or anything of that sort. We just ask people to be vigilant about it. The one thing I would suggest, if you're traveling out of state, you have to call ahead to that state of destination, because there are some additional restrictions on our animal movements out of the state of Kansas, because we now are considered a VSV state.
It started out in 1 county, then it was 4, now it's 10. So, Justin, you're stressing that this has become a statewide issue, and you're trying to keep it from actually spreading that far, but it's going to take vigilance on a lot of folks' parts to keep this thing restricted.
That is very true. I mean, we know that we're in the midst of exhibition season. We're in the midst of rodeos and horse shows and stuff. And like I said, we haven't put any kind of restrictions on those. We encourage those show managers to take the extra steps to make sure that horses don't become infected at those facilities. But also, probably more importantly, we know that this is the time of year that our Flint Hill grass cattle are going to start being taken off and moved around. So we've got to be hyper vigilant on looking at those animals and making sure that we don't spread it inadvertently to other parts of the states than it's already going to be done. So there again, would encourage everybody to just kind of step up and look at their biosecurity, look at what they can do in their own family and their own farm, and make sure that we don't spread it inadvertently.
And your office stands ready to answer questions, noting once more this is a reportable disease, so your contact points are very important here, Justin.
That is exactly. We appreciate that. So, yes, we are ready. All of our field vets out there are attuned to this and, like I said, are doing investigations on a daily basis. So if people do have questions, concerns, one is I'd have you reach out to your local veterinarian. But at the same time, you can reach us directly at our phone number at 785-564-6601. Or I would also point people to our website, Eric, that was at agriculture.ks.gov. We have some really good resources on there for VSV as well.
Again, the phone number is 785-564-6601, or the website, which has, as Justin says, a wealth of information on VSV, agriculture.ks.gov. Justin, we appreciate you taking a few moments to visit with us right here about it today.
Well, thank you, Eric. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to visit about it and would, like I said, encourage people to reach out whenever they have questions.
Justin Smith with us, Animal Health Commissioner from the Kansas Department of Agriculture, filling us in on the very latest word on Vesicular Stomatitis virus, or VSV, in Kansas horses and other livestock. Stay alert to this situation, producers. You're listening to Agriculture Today.
Man, it's hot out here. Heat stress affects more than just humans. It also affects livestock. Extreme heat, humidity, wind speeds, and cloud cover all make a difference in air temperature. To control problems, make sure your livestock have shade and water provided at all times. This will help prevent problems in breeding, meat production, and reduce chances of death. Please take all these into consideration for livestock production. Brought to you by K-State Animal Science Leadership Academy participants.
Agriculture Today continues now on the K-State Radio Network. Our time set aside every other week now for a visit on what's happening with your Farm Service Agency state offices around Kansas and the programs that they serve on behalf of producers. This is called the FSA Coffee Talk. This time around, joining us is an administrative specialist with the FSA state headquarters for Kansas here in Manhattan. Terri Sicard has joined us to talk of the role and purpose of those county FSA committees, for there is an important process regarding that coming up quite soon. And Terri, thanks for joining us. Before we get into our primary topic today, though, how are things going at those local FSA counters right now? Again, with the pandemic coming along and interfering with normal business, there have been changes, and those are still intact?
Yes, the offices are fully operational right now, very busy with acreage reporting. They're still taking appointments by phone and doing a lot of stuff through email, but fully functional.
And that's probably going to be the mode of operation for a while yet. So producers should be accustomed to this if they aren't already.
Correct.
Let's talk of the county FSA committees. And sometimes, Terri, these go overlooked because they are a normal part of administrative business when it comes to the USDA programs, that wide assortment of programs out there. Remind us about the functions of the committees, if you would.
Okay. The county committees are a vital link between the agency and the farm community. County committees are accountable to the state committee, and they oversee the county office and county executive director who runs the county office. The county committee members act like a board of directors for the FSA county office. They're locally elected. Expectations for the county committee is that they represent the area as a whole. They maintain strict confidentiality. They make informed, fair, and impartial decisions. They have a good understanding of FSA programs and what they can accomplish. They follow law and regulations, and they ensure that local agricultural needs are addressed. They have 5 major areas of responsibility to the rangers, farmers, and producers: programs, public information and outreach, equal opportunity, and administrative, including supervision and county office oversight. County committees take action only as a committee, and all important decisions should be made by consensus. County committees also hear appeals of county decisions, and the county committee hires, supervises, and evaluates the performance of the county executive director. Each county committee is elected by eligible farmers and ranchers within that county and LAA. Eligible local farmers and ranchers nominate candidates, and eligible producers vote on nominees. For anyone who doesn't know what an LAA is, it's the local administrative area within a county or area. LAAs are the areas that hold elections for the FSA County Office Committee. A single county has 3 LAAs. Combined county offices have from 3 to 5 LAAs. The committee may also include advisors who are appointed by the state committee to advocate for underrepresented groups and assist in outreach activities. We're currently well underway with the 2020 county committee election process. If your LAA is up for election, you will want to file an FSA 669A to nominate yourself or other eligible candidates. Eligible candidates may be nominated by organizations to represent underserved farmers and ranchers, or by any eligible producer whose records are administered in the same COC jurisdiction.
And these nominations are due quite soon. That's why we're highlighting them today.
Yes, they're normally due August 1st of every year, but since the 1st is on a weekend, they're due on August 3rd this year. Ballots will be mailed out in November for LAAs holding an election, and new terms start on January 1st.
As far as the nomination process here, what's required in the way of paperwork or other particulars?
Yes, anybody who's interested will want to fill out an FSA 669A nomination form. Those can be picked up at any of your local FSAs or on the FSA website.
And they're pretty straightforward in as far as what they require in terms of information?
Yes. Yep.
Who can be nominated? One has to be, if memory serves, confirmed as an actual agricultural producer to be qualified.
Correct. Yeah, as long as you operate ground or have a farming operation, you're eligible to be on the county committee.
It has to be a bona fide producer as defined by the USDA to be qualified for the position.
Correct.
And one can self-nominate, you say, and that's
yes.
The same procedure?
Same procedure, yep. You just go in and nominate yourself and fill out one of those forms, and that's all there is to it.
And then, as you said, the actual election will happen later on in the year, November to December, and that will be done via mail ballots. Is that correct, Terri?
Correct. And anybody who doesn't receive a mail ballot can stop in to their local FSA office, and they should have some blank ballots in there that they can fill out.
So once the ballots are in, how soon, Terri, does the new county committee membership actually take office?
Yes, ballots are usually counted by the first week of December, and the new member would take office on January 1st.
Now, understood that this is a commitment on an individual's part when they are elected to the county FSA committee. It's not a small responsibility here, so producers need to be eyes wide open on that as they would nominate.
That's correct. You'll want somebody that will represent your area well and is willing to serve for a 3-year term. And it's really a very, very important role, and we encourage everybody, to look into that and think about the possibility of serving.
Or talk with an individual, a neighbor, and see if they would be willing to step up and fill this capacity if so nominated. And you mentioned this to an effect earlier, but it's worth reiterating, Terri. These committees do interpret USDA programs as to their local application, and not any one county or administrative area is the same. So that ability to interpret those programs is highly important in the function of the FSA, isn't it?
That's correct.
If anybody has any questions about the committee itself or the election process, are there sources they can turn to on this, Terri?
Yes, they can give us a call here at the state office or contact their local county office. They can also check out our website, www.fsa.usda.gov, and there's a lot of information on there on county committees. Yeah.
Keeping well in mind that the critical initial date here is August the 3rd, that is a Monday, at which those nominations need to be into the local FSA headquarters. Is that where it goes, Terri?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So be sure and don't waste a lot of time here. If you have someone in mind you'd like to nominate, if you'd like to nominate yourself for one of those open positions on your county FSA committee, get that taken care of before that date rolls around here. Highly important operation, the county committee, to the administration of USDA programs at that local level. Terri, thanks for the heads up on this. We appreciate your time right here.
Thanks for having me.
That's Terri Sicard. Terri, an administrative specialist with the Farm Service Agency State Office for Kansas here in Manhattan on those county committee elections. One further bit of USDA program information to pass along. The department is now providing additional flexibilities for you producers to file on acres with failed crops or crops that were prevented from planting because of extreme weather events. The FSA is adding these flexibilities for notice of loss on both insured and uninsured crops. For insured crops, those who have timely filed a prevented planted claim with the reinsurance company but filed a notice of loss form after the deadline will be considered timely filed for FSA purposes now. For uninsured crops, producers may start a notice of loss by calling that FSA county office or can print and complete the notice of loss form from home and then send it to the county office. For prevented planted acreage, notice of loss forms mailed to the FSA office must be postmarked by the final acreage reporting date in the county to be considered timely filed. Additionally, producers who miss the FSA's July the 15th acreage reporting deadline, which noting here is tomorrow, will not face a late filing fee if that's filed within a month of that deadline. So if you have any questions about any of that, you can touch base with your local FSA personnel likewise. That is our latest FSA Coffee Talk here on Agriculture Today. We'll take a short break now. When we return, today's agricultural news headlines, including the latest crop condition update for Kansas out of the USDA. K-State's Mike Brook awaits with another Milk Lines. Standing by as well, Charlie Lee with his weekly visit on wildlife management. So please keep it right here on the K-State Radio Network.
Social distancing slows the spread of coronavirus, so if you have a fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going in. More info at coronavirus.gov. Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're tuned in to Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network, now in our 96th year of broadcast service to agriculture in Kansas and the Central Plains. Eric Atkinson with you. On to today's agricultural news headlines and the weekly crop progress and condition update out of Kansas Agricultural Statistics. As of this past weekend, topsoil moisture supplies in the state were at 3% surplus, 52% adequate and 45% short to very short. Subsoil moisture supplies, very similar, 1% surplus, 54% adequate, and 45% short to very short. The winter wheat harvest as of the past weekend, 95% complete. That's ahead of the 90% average for the date. The condition of the Kansas corn crop, 53% good to excellent, 34% fair, 13% poor to very poor. Corn now silking at 47%, that's near the average. Corn in the dough stage at 9%, again, near the average. Kansas soybeans, 59% good to excellent, 34% fair, 7% poor to very poor. Soybeans blooming now at 43%. That is well ahead of the 28% average for the date, and soybeans now setting pods at 6%, near the average. Grain sorghum condition, 49% good to excellent, 40% fair, 11% poor to very poor. Sorghum headed at 9% now, right on the average. And range and pasture conditions around the state, 41% good to excellent, 37% fair, and 22% poor to very poor, according to the latest USDA numbers from Kansas Agricultural Statistics. For a look at the latest national corn and soybean conditions now, here's the USDA's Stephanie Ho.
Corn and soybeans saw small declines in condition ratings. First with corn.
69% of the crop now rated good to excellent, 8% very poor to poor. That's compared to 71% good to excellent a week ago and 6% very poor to poor. But even with that small decline, the crop still rated considerably above last year's.
That was USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey.
Soybean condition, like corn, took a small decline for the week ending July 12th, now 68% good to excellent. 7% very poor to poor. A week ago, those numbers were 71 and 5%, respectively. Like corn, we see soybeans rated better than this time a year ago.
Meanwhile, 29% of the corn is silking, behind the 5-year average, but more than twice the pace of last year. 48% of soybeans are blooming, ahead of both the average and last year's pace. This is Stephanie Ho for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
For the first time in its 106-year history, the Kansas State Fair has been canceled. The State Fair Board reconsidered their previous decision back on June the 30th to have the 10-day event. Yesterday, the board voted to cancel the 2020 fair. Circumstances, including several large vendors pulling out for this year, forcing the board to reconsider their previous decision. This year's fair was scheduled September the 11th through the 20th. While the traditional fair will not be happening, the staff is working now to host both open class and youth livestock shows over 3 weekends starting Labor Day weekend. That will include the state's premier Grand Drive youth show. That'll take place September the 11th through the 13th. The board will also evaluate potential activities elsewise in the next month. Now, the first official Kansas State Fair was held in Atkinson in 1913. This, again, the first time in its history that the fair will not happen. The fair contributes an estimated $74.6 million to the Kansas economy annually. That's according to a 2018 report by the Kansas Department of Agriculture. The economic impact in the fair's 60-mile radius is more than $40 million. All gate admission tickets, packages, and food tickets already purchased for this year's fair will be valid for the 2021 Kansas State Fair. More information on the fair's website, kansasstatefair.com, kansasstatefair.com. Now on to our weekly edition for you dairy producers' milk lines. Here's K-State dairy specialist Mike Brook. Mike?
Today I want to visit with our Kansas dairy farmers concerning corn silage harvest. Wow, looking down the road. We're in the countdown the harvest. I mean, we've put down all of the fertilizer, we've probably applied all the fungicide and herbicides that we're going to apply, and we really need to start thinking about harvest. Another reason maybe we need to start thinking about harvest is if you've taken a peek at the long-range forecast for July, it's looking like here in Kansas we're going to be pretty warm. And maybe even actually warmer than normal. So that means the weeks are going to go fast. So as we sit here today, we could be in that 6 to 8 week window prior to harvest. So what are some of the things that you should be concentrating on your farm? One of the things you should be thinking about is the storage site for your silage. Is it ready? Do you need to do some site maintenance? Do we need to straighten up some maintenance on the site so that it drains correctly this year? Maybe it didn't drain so well last year. Maybe we need to bring in some fill, or there's some repair if we have a concrete-type bunker silo that we need to work on. Maybe there's other equipment associated with unloading and those sorts of things if we have upright storage that we need to work about. Now, some other things to consider: your harvesting equipment. Maybe you own your own chopper, trucks, packing equipment, or bagger. All those things need maintenance. They need to be brought up to snuff so that we're ready when the harvest actually comes. If you bring a harvest crew in, maybe even to run your own equipment, do you have those arrangements made? Do you know who's going to be there in just a couple of months to help you get that done? And it could be a shorter time depending on what happens with the weather. Harvesting supplies, the plastic, if we're putting up silage piles or bunker silos, so we got something to cover it, or plastic for the bags if we're bagging it, inoculant. Keep in mind that the shipping lanes are moving a little bit slower than what they maybe have in the past, so you may need to allow some extra lead time to make sure that you have these supplies on your farm and ready to go. If you're hiring your harvesting done, have you contacted your custom harvester? Are you starting to look at some target dates? Really need to be doing that. So the last big question I want you to consider as a farm manager is, what do you need to do this year that you didn't do last year? What kind of mistakes were made in the silage harvesting process, and what kinds of things are you going to change so that that doesn't happen again this year? We don't need to repeat mistakes. We generally know what went wrong. We just need to figure out what the solution is. So this is Mike Brook with K-State Research and Extension, encouraging our dairy farmers to begin the process of getting ready for corn silage harvest. And it'll be a lot closer than we think.
Indeed it will. Mike, thanks for the input as always, and we'll be back after you hear this. This is Agriculture Today.
When you are in need of timely, reliable, and trusted information, K-State Research and Extension is here. Whether it's organizing people, information, or resources, they have the necessary tools. Community comes first for K-State Research and Extension. For more information and to connect with your county's extension agents, visit www.ksre.k-state.edu.
For you now on Agriculture Today, our weekly visit with Charlie Lee, wildlife specialist, K-State Research and Extension, on another wildlife management topic. Here's something that everybody can identify with, Charlie: skunk odor control. You can't hardly find anybody out there who hasn't had a negative encounter with a skunk at one time or the other.
Unfortunately, when skunks enter a garage or cellar or window wells or perhaps even the home, in an attempt to remove the skunk, often there is an odor release. And the skunks are very famous for that pungent defensive spray known as musk. The musk is a yellow-tinted, oily liquid that's stored in two sacs located on opposite sides of the anus of the skunk. Each sac holds about a teaspoon of musk, which is enough to allow multiple sprays. It's discharged through nipples that provide skunks with several key advantages that help them target those things that they are trying to repel. Each nipple has its own musk sac so that the skunk can shoot with both barrels. Those nipples can be directed so that they can be aimed at a specific target, and they can be adjusted to discharge the musk either in a mist or a stream. The musk of those skunks does not transmit the rabies virus, but it can temporarily blind and stun individuals that are sprayed in the face. Oftentimes, that very pungent odor causes watery eyes, and it's known that humans can smell the musk of skunks in concentrations as low as 10 parts per billion.
What's the musk consisting of then, chemically speaking?
Yes, it consists of thiols. THIOLS. There are 3 volatile chemicals that gives it that awful smell. So the 3 essential aspects that are present before someone can smell an odor are the way you try to deodorize an area. First, there must be a source of the odor. The odor must be released, and it must be perceived. So if you remove any of those from the equation, then you're unable to perceive the odor. Most situations where there's been a odor release from skunks, you try to use the perception. I would prefer that you remove the first, and that's get rid of the skunk before the odor is released, but unfortunately, that's usually not the situation. People don't call to ask how to prevent the problem. They want to know how to clean it up afterwards.
Well, let's get into those options for doing so. And there are a few commercial possibilities and some home remedies out there as well.
Sure, there are several deodorizing products out there. There's over-the-counter solutions that can reduce odors. A gentleman named Paul Krebaum discovered a formula that's proven its ability to chemically neutralize the thiols in this musk of skunks, and that's mixing 1 quart of 3% hydrogen peroxide, 1/4 cup of baking soda, and a teaspoon of liquid detergent. You mix that up in an open container and use it immediately. You don't mix those ingredients in advance, as the oxygen is released and it may cause the container to explode. So this formula can be used on people and pets, but you want to avoid splashing the product in the eyes or the mouth. On pets, allow the solution to remain on the pet's hair for at least 5 minutes before rinsing it off with water, and then it may need a repeat of treatment after the pet is dried. There's been other over-the-counter products, which is a 1 cup of liquid laundry bleach and 1 gallon of water. That can be used on inanimate objects like surfaces, decks, chairs, outside products. There's a variety of odor control products that are available in stores. Skunk Off and Odor Mute are 2 that come to mind. Many homeowners have said that those are very helpful in deodorizing their property. Tomato juice is not something that I typically recommend. It appears to only be marginally effective. There are professional deodorants that are available for use by the public. Nitrolium alpha. It's been used to control the odor from skunks in a variety of settings. It deodorizes by masking the odor with a different one that's described as minty or pleasant. You can use it directly on surfaces. It can be used as an air deodorizer by putting it on paper towels or napkins and then hanging them in the area. And generally, 1 application is sufficient using nitrolium alpha. It does have some irritating and toxic properties, so you should avoid direct contact with the product and then use it in well-ventilated areas. There's another product called Fresh Wave. It neutralizes odors by using van der Waal forces. It captures those compounds and then chemically modifies those products. It can be sprayed on affected surfaces, and it's repeated as needed. It does have a slight smell to it, but it's been described as pleasant. There's a Epolian N100 is a water-based organic odor neutralizer that's nearly odorless. It's sold as a concentrate and must be diluted in water before its use. The dilution ratio is anywhere from a 1:5 to a 1:20 ratio, depending upon the amount of odor that you're trying to cover up.
So no lack of alternatives there. Once more, save oneself the trouble, though, by excluding skunks, if nothing else, from an area where children, pets, and people in general might hang out.
It's certainly a better idea to prevent the problem than to try to deal with the after effects, but there are certainly lots of products out there that will help them through what may be a somewhat difficult or uncomfortable situation. Keep in mind that At times when you get a high humidity situation or rainfall, the odor will appear to come back, but simply can reapply some of the products. That works well at deodorizing or masking those thiols in skunk musk.
Well, there are some options for skunk odor control. Charlie, thank you for covering all of that with us this week. Charlie Lee, Wildlife Specialist, K-State Research and Extension. With that, our time's away for today. Thanks for tuning in. Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.